Hello, welcome to Harbor Online or in person. We're so glad you could join us today. We are John,
Sparrow,
and
Jordan, and Lori Condon from Eastham. God led us to Harbor after attending a service in Falmouth one Sunday, and we just happened to drive by. We are so excited about the news that Harbor is planning on opening churches on the Lower and Upper Cape.
we hope you enjoy the service and have a blessed day.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being a part of Harbor Online today. I want to let you know about a few things before we get into the message. First of all, if you're new here, just tuned in online for the first time, one of the first few times, please click the link in the caption. We would love to send you a gift just to say thanks for joining us today. Number 2, we are doing a Christmas tree giveaway Saturday, December 5th, starting at 9 a.m. until we run out. We are just giving away free Christmas trees to anyone in our community who's in need. We know it's a tough time for a lot of families, so we want to just do what we can to be a blessing and give them a Merry Christmas. So if you would like to help out, if you consider Harbor your home, you want to come help us out, there's going to be snacks and coffee and a craft for kids. We're going to keep it all COVID friendly, but you can come volunteer. Just help us reach out to our community, help us to be known for what we give and not what we take. If you want to get in on that, you can text TREE 2020 to 84576. Just let us know that you want to help out. We would love to see you there. And even if you can't help, just come hang out or grab a tree if you find yourself in need. We would love to see you. And then last but not least, we are doing a #masks social media challenge. So we've been in the mask series for a few weeks now. This is the last message in that series. We want to get you guys in on the action a little bit. So if you take a photo of yourself in a mask, maybe it's like a sheet mask for a facial, maybe it's a scary Halloween mask, whatever you got at home, take a picture, put it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, tag Harbor.Church in it, and #masks. We're going to pick our favorite and send them a gift card to a local restaurant of their choice, just to say thanks for joining us, and we want to see you guys in your masks and get you in on the fun. That is all I have for you this morning. We're going to get into the message, so keep tuning in.
All right. Hello, Harbor.Church. How's everybody doing? All right. Good. So good to see you guys. I'll do some introductions here in a second, but if you know me or if you've been here before, and I know some of you haven't, or maybe you're watching for the very first time, that's fine. I still want you to play along. I like to ask a question just to get you interacting. It doesn't have anything to do with the message, but I thought if I ever get to ask a really in-depth food question, it's got to be going into Thanksgiving. And if you didn't know, your pastor is a foodie. Obviously, I am. I love food, and so I was like, man, I like asking food questions, and I was like, if there's ever a time to ask a food question, it's got to be this week as we prepare for Thanksgiving, and if you're going to be cooking a meal, or if you're just attending a meal, and you're like, I just like other people to cook for me, great, good job, but I thought maybe we could figure out what should be cooked. Because some of you might be like, oh man, I'm not 100% sure on what I'm supposed to make, or I've got people coming over. I polled my Foundations of Faith class, my Connect group, and I asked them for their favorite sides, the side dishes. I know that the norm is turkey, so we'll leave the protein out. The turkey's fine. Maybe you're a ham person or something else, that's fine. But we'll just assume that the turkey is the settled part of the meal. I thought we could play along and just vote on and have like a little tournament today to find what is the absolute must-have side dish. If you could only have one. Now, if you're watching online, play along. I want you to drop your answer in the comments. Everybody else here is going to raise their hand. You could each round you can only vote for one of the two, okay? But you have to vote for one so that we can get a clear winner. And if you're playing online, just put your comments in and we'll see which ones go along. If you're listening to this on the podcast, maybe you're driving around or working out. Sorry that we're talking about food while you're trying to work out, but like you can just guess what you think the top one will be. So let's do this. Let's go. Let's get involved. Remember, the more you interact with me, the more fun you're going to have, the more you're going to enjoy the message. I don't know that that's true, but let's just say it is. So give me your vote, all right? So let's do the first one. And I just asked people, like, you give me your favorites, and then we'll whittle them down. So this is the favorites that people gave me. First one is mashed potatoes. This is a classic. Not everybody agrees that this has to be there. I think this is a must-have. In the first round, we have mashed potatoes going up against another favorite. A lot of people said that this one was theirs. It's the green bean casserole. So this is the first round. You have to vote for one of those two, okay? You have to vote for one of those two. So in the first round, we have mashed potatoes versus green bean casserole. How many, you type it in the comments online, you guys watching that way, how many of you would say, I am team mashed potatoes? How many out of those two mashed potatoes? If you could only keep one, you're keeping mashed potatoes, okay? How many of you would say it's green bean casserole? Green bean casserole. And I don't know what the online, but that was clearly mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes won round one there. Over on the east side, west bracket, south bracket, I don't know what other bracket it is, we have two really popular Thanksgiving sides. We have stuffing. How many of you, stuffing fans? Okay. Stuffing. Facing off against what is one of my personal favorites, carbs galore, or also known as rolls. And you got to have, man, rolls. Yeah, I know. I'm making you pick against some good stuff. If it was like stuffing versus just crap or something, you'd know which one you're voting for. I want it to be hard. All right, so you can either vote for rolls or you can vote for stuffing. That's your only two options. All right, you can only keep one. You can only keep one. Which one are you keeping? How many would say I'm team stuffing? I would keep the stuffing. Okay, and how many of you would say I'm keeping the rolls? The rolls are what I'm keeping. Once again, not knowing how the online polling is going, I'll let somebody else read in there. We're going to have to give that to team stuffing. That was a pretty good one. I wasn't sure how that one's going to go. This next one is near and dear to my heart. All right, here's some that are not as popular or as well known as the other ones, but we have in this next bracket, we have deviled eggs facing off, all right? So deviled eggs facing off against sweet potatoes. We have sweet potatoes, which I know are not the same as yams, but you could kind of put them together. Yams, sweet potatoes, whatever, versus deviled eggs. And so we're going to take a vote there, all right? How many of you would say, I'm team deviled eggs? Team deviled eggs. Keep the deviled eggs. All right. How many would say I'm team sweet potatoes? Man, I'm going to have to give that to sweet potatoes. I want to recap. Which is probably indicative that you guys need to get your hearts right. There is nothing better than deviled eggs. I'm just going to tell you that right now. That is no joke. All right. Let's go into the dessert category because we need to have a poll there too. All right, let's face off on this may not be yours, but this is what came in as the two top desserts. First off, we have pumpkin pie, and then it's facing off against pecan pie. So we have pumpkin versus pecan, or pecan, however you want to say it, pecan. All right, so how many of you got to pick between those. You can only keep one of them. How many would say I'm keeping the pumpkin pie? Keeping the pumpkin pie. Ooh, this might be tight. All right, you can only vote for one, remember? Okay, how many would say I'm keeping the pecan pie? The pecan pie's mine. Pecan, whatever. I'm going to give it to pumpkin by a nose, just barely. All right, so winner's bracket. Here we go, winner's bracket. We've got mashed potatoes versus stuffing. So we have mashed potatoes versus stuffing. We got to have a winner between those two. Mashed potatoes versus stuffing. How many of you would say I'm keeping mashed potatoes out of those two? And how many of you would say stuffing? Oh, we got to do that one more time. That's too close. Only vote once. Hey, team mashed potatoes, team stuffing. Stuffing gets it. Stuffing gets it. That's a bummer. All right. Then we have sweet potatoes versus pumpkin pie. Sweet potato, was it rolls? No, stuffing beat rolls, guys. Sorry. And sweet potatoes beat deviled eggs. I'm the one keeping score. Shut your mouths. Oh, I know. I wrote it down. You didn't write it down. I've got it. Okay. So sweet potatoes versus pumpkin pie won, right? Yeah. All right. So who's going to vote on that out of those two? Who's sticking with pumpkin pie? How many people are pumpkin pie people? The other one is sweet potatoes. How many would say sweet potatoes? Pumpkin pie got it. Final round. Here we go. And then we're done. And then you don't have to think about food till next week. All right. Here we go. It's pumpkin pie versus what was the other winner? Stuffing, right? Wow, that's going to be two rough classics. All right, pumpkin pie versus stuffing. How many of you would say pumpkin pie? If I could only keep one thing, I'm keeping pumpkin pie. How many of you would say stuffing? There you go. There you go. It's stuffing. It is stuffing. All right. Bonus round. This is overtime. How many of you would say gravy versus cranberry sauce? How many are if you can only keep one of those two, this is like condiments, so it doesn't count. It's just a little bonus round. How many would say team gravy? I'm team gravy if I could only keep one of those. How many would say I am cranberry sauce? Ooh, that's the edge goes to gravy, I think, on that one by like maybe one or two people. All right. I'm just going to find out every service. I'm going to do that every service just to make people hungry and want to leave, and also so I know like which ones are the most popular. By the way, if you come over to my house, you will have to eat deviled eggs. That's just the way it goes. I'm sorry. Not sorry. All right. By the way, if you're new to church, this is not a normal thing that I do ask a lot of dumb questions. We don't normally do a tournament of food. If this is your first time at Harbor, or if this is your first time watching online or listening, just thanks for coming. Thanks for letting me have a little bit of fun. My name is Josh. I'm the pastor at Harbor.Church. And I'm just glad that you're giving me a little bit of your time, not to talk about food, but to go a little bit deeper in the Word. That's just to kind of help us relax a little bit, interact a little bit. I love interaction, so feel free to interact with me as we go through the message. But we're finishing up a series that we have called Masks. And so this weekend is our last message in this series. And I'm excited that we can kind of come to the conclusion about what it looks like when we put on some false things and God has called us to take those off. And we've walked through these masks to see, and we've asked the question, can anyone see the real you? And so we started the very first week with the shame mask. And if you didn't hear that message, it's okay, but it's the idea that we cover up the things that we're embarrassed about in our past, the things that hurt us, the scars, the stuff that brings shame on us. We do that cover up, that mask. And then we moved on to the pretender's mask. When we wear the mask that lets us be better than we actually are, when we pretend that we are stronger, smarter, more spiritual, more holy than what we really are. That's the Pharisees, the pretenders, the ones that don't really think about what it is that they need to do. They just pretend that they've already done it. And then we moved into the defender's mask. And we talked about what it looks like to be protective, to protect yourself. We used a fencing mask. A lot of masks are designed for this, whether it's a welding mask, a hockey mask, a football helmet. I just want to protect myself. My goal is to make sure nothing hurts me, and that's usually the person who's already been hurt, just keeping everybody else at an arm's length. And then last week, we had John Petty preaching for us, and what he talked to us about is he used the ski mask to talk about the cover-up. The idea that if I just hide my identity, I can get away with sin, and that our desire to hide ourselves and continue on in sin only keeps us from really identifying as who we're supposed to be. That's a child of God. So we have all of these negative masks. And these are all masks that you and I wear, not physically, but metaphorically. It's things that you and I do. We put these things on to either cover up mistakes or help us pretend like we don't have them, maybe help us get away with stuff, or maybe just make sure we don't get hurt. We've got a lot of reasons for masks, and these aren't the only four. These are just the ones that we had time to get into. But they're all negative, and they're all detrimental to our walk with God. And so I thought if we're really going to do a series on masks, we need to talk about what it is that we should put on. If we have all the ones that we're not supposed to be wearing, and we've been challenged to take them off, and many of you wear more than one mask. You wear maybe all of these, all at the same time, or you just alternate throughout the day. Where you're at, but we're supposed to take this stuff off and put something else on. And what does that look like? And what does the Bible call us to do in that regard? And I'm going to use the story of Moses to illustrate this. And if you don't know how Moses came about, he becomes the leader of a nation of slaves. He goes into Egypt and he challenges the Pharaoh because God sends him to do this. He challenges the Pharaoh to let go of his slave nation, which is a giant group of Hebrews. Some people think it might have been 1 million of them. We're not sure of the exact amount, but I mean, a lot of people, an entire nation was enslaved under the Egyptian authority for over 400 years. And Moses, with God's help, he unleashes plagues on Egypt, and eventually the Pharaoh lets the Egyptians go. He's like, get out of my land, don't cause me any more problems. And they escape Egypt, and now they're walking through the desert because God said, I'm going to pull you out of slavery, and I'll make you my people, and I'm going to take you to a promised land. But you got to understand, for over 400 years, they've just kind of just been locked up, and most of them have been serving Egyptian gods. They've been worshiping false gods, and now Moses shows up and says, no, you're not supposed to worship pagan gods. You're supposed to worship the one true God. He's going to set us free. And so they're on their baby steps learning to trust God. They're barely learning what it looks like to follow after this Yahweh. Now, and they struggle because they have all these other gods that they've worshiped this whole time, and yet this God that unleashes plagues also parts the Red Sea, and they walk through, and then we have that he helps them win a battle, and then he turns some bitter water sweet and gives them water in the desert, and then he sends manna. And so they find this God they're following seems to be pretty powerful, and they're just new in this walk. They're new in what it means to trust after this God. And so God brings them to this mountain called Sinai. And so they're in this wilderness of Sinai, and there's a mountain there, and Mount Sinai is where God tells them to camp. And they're hanging out there, and God says, I'm going to come down on this mountain. And he actually says, Moses, tell the people you can't even touch the mountain. Get close, come around, I'm going to speak to everybody. My cloud is going to come down. He's going to send a cloud down. He goes, I'm going to speak to everybody. But tell them they can't go on the mountain. They can't even let their animals go up on the mountain. Nobody can touch it. If you touch the mountain, you're going to die. But get close, because I'm going to come and I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you what's up. And Moses goes up on the mountain. He goes up and he talks to God. And it says that the clouds begin to rumble. The thunder claps. The mountain shakes, and fire begins to spew out. And non-believers, historians say that, that they take God out of it. They say, well, it must have just been an earthquake and a volcanic eruption that happened at the same time. And they think it's something spiritual. Sure, coincidence, that's fine. But it's not. The Bible tells us that this is to demonstrate God's power. And as a matter of fact, during that moment, as that cloud settled and the fire begins to erupt and the mountain begins to shake, God says he blasts a ram's horn. So they hear the sound of a ram's horn, which just kind of grabs everybody's attention. And then God speaks to them. And it scares them to death. I had to cut out all of this because it's verse after verse. You got to read Exodus 19, Exodus 20. The men and the men of Israel go to Moses and they go, Moses, don't make us talk to God. He's going to kill us. They are so afraid of this fire and this noise and this voice of God. They're like, Moses, you go talk to God and we'll listen to whatever he tells you. But if he talks to us, it'll kill us. Please don't make us hear from God. That's how impressive this moment with God is. And so Moses goes up on the mountain and God gives him the 10 Commandments. And as a matter of fact, while he's gone so long, the Israelites panic and then they end up building a false god. They make a false idol called a golden calf because they're too afraid. They need something to worship and they don't think Moses is coming back. Moses comes back and he's like, what the heck? And he takes the 10 Commandments and he smashes them down and he breaks the golden calf and he punishes them. And God's like, I'm going to kill them. And Moses is like, don't kill them, God. Don't kill them. They're dumb, but they're scared. Like, help us. And so Moses goes back up into the mountain to beg God for help. And God says, I'm going to give you the 10 Commandments again. Let's write them again. I don't know if you knew this, but the first 10 Commandments got destroyed. The second set of 10 Commandments, same 10 Commandments, but the second list is the one that they end up putting in the Ark of the Covenant that they carried around because the first ones got broken during the golden calf debacle. So Moses goes back up the mountain, and this is where we pick up the story. In Exodus chapter 34, we see that the Lord passed in front of Moses, calling out Yahweh. The Lord calls out his own name, Yahweh, the Lord. The God of compassion and mercy. I'm slow to anger and filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. I lavish unfailing love to 1,000 generations. I forgive iniquity and rebellion and sin, but I don't excuse the guilty. He'll forgive. This is talking about the difference between people who repent versus people who just regret that they did something wrong. But he says, I don't excuse the guilty. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children and the grandchildren. The entire family is affected, even children into the third and fourth generations. And Moses, when he hears God, when God comes and speaks to him, Moses immediately threw himself to the ground and began to worship. And he says, "Oh Lord, it's true that I found favor with you. Then please travel with us. Don't let us leave this desert place unless you're going to walk with us, God." Yes, this is a stubborn and rebellious people. If there's a parent or a boss or anybody's had to deal with a lot of other people, you can appreciate him going, yeah, I get it. These people are rough to be around, God. They're stubborn and they're rebellious. But he says, please forgive our iniquity and our sins. And I love this last line. Claim us as your own special possession. Your own special possession. This time where he encounters God, God does something really special in the following verses that we're going to look at. And it describes what I think is our last mask, the mask that we need to have, the mask that we need to put on. The rest are masks that we need to take off, and that's an ongoing battle. You're going to have to wrestle in your flesh every day to take a mask off. But the mask that I think that we want to look at kind of embodies what happens there when Moses hears from God. He gets down on his face and he worships. And he says, God, forgive us. Make us your possession. God, you can transform us into whatever you want. God, we're giving you permission to make us yours. We belong to you. We were slaves to the Egyptians, but what we want is we want to be slaves to you. We're surrendering to your will. We're laying down what we want so that you can make us into whatever you want to make us into. What he's doing is he's asking God, God, would you give me a makeover? Would you take your people and transform us? Would you do something good to us? We've been doing all of this crap our whole lives. We've been putting on all of the things that we think will make us better, and all we've done is made ourselves more of slaves. We've been slaves for years and decades and centuries and generation after generation. We keep doing our stuff. Will you, God, please do your thing? Do your thing to us. And this is the first time that we see a nation of people being surrendered and called to God. Prior to this, it was just Abraham and just Isaac and then just Jacob and then just his sons. But now it's applying to all of these people. And so we finally see a nation of people having to come to the place where they say, we can't do it on our own. We can't keep picking how we are going to make ourselves look because we keep screwing it up. So we need you to do something for us. And when we get to that same place, and if church is all new to you and God is new to you, then great, you fit right in the story because he was brand new to them too. They're like, we don't know what this is going on, but we're ready to try. And and if you're sitting there going, I know this story, I've known God my whole life, and I've been doing church for a long time. Well, good, pat yourself on the back, that's fine. But are you actually allowing God the control to do something healthy in your life? To give you something to put on? And everybody's seat, there should have been a mask. There should have been something sitting on that chair for you. It's a facial mask. It's meant to be healthy. Some of them have different things written on them. Mine said it's a glow booster. Glow booster, because I need to glow, It says it's for skin that will make your skin radiant and smooth and visibly more beautiful. As if though that's possible. Radiant. And it's this idea of a radiant glow that we're going to talk about. But we put the mask on your seat and we put our verse on them, just like we did the very first week. We put the verse Colossians 3, 9, and 10. And that's our theme verse for this series. And Colossians 3, verses 9 and 10 say this: don't lie to each other. That means stop pretending. Stop putting on masks. Don't lie to each other. Don't fool yourself and don't try to fool the people around you. You have to strip off your old sinful nature. This is sin. The things we do to protect ourselves, to cover up our sin, to make us feel better, to make other people like us, that's our sin nature trying to deal with our sin issues, and that's not what God has for us. You take the old off. You take your old sin nature off, those wicked deeds, and then the next verse, it goes on and tells us, you put on your new nature. You have to go from being a slave to being a child of God. You go from saying, oh man, I've been worshiping in Egypt and I've been chained to my old stuff, to my old mask. God, you do something with me. And you learn to know your Creator and become a better version of yourself. You put on your new creation, the new Creator. You put on the new, and you become more like Him. And so what we gave you is we gave you these masks. These kind of face masks. Oh my goodness, that's cold and wet. All right. Now you take these home. We got a contest for you. You can take one or two of the ones on your seats home. You use them at home. Maybe you'll get radiant, glowing. I didn't realize how wet these things are. These are kind of nasty. At least I got a beard. It's not going to stick to that. Okay, we're good. Ladies, if you have a beard, that's another problem. Okay. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do with the makeover mask. I want you to understand the makeover mask. The makeover mask, rather than these physical kind of weird ones, I know some are charcoal and some are avocado or weird ones we found. Help yourself. But, oh, it's coming off. Look at that. All right. But here's the makeup mask. It's a humble recognition. It's a humble recognition that you need God more than you need anything else. The mask I'm going to ask you to put on this weekend, the mask I'm asking you to think about is the healthiest version of what God might have for you. It's not you trying to fix you. It's not you pretending to be something better than you are. It's about you getting close to God. And for some of you, you've never really been close to God. But when you humble yourself, like Moses, who got on the ground and put his face in the dirt and he said, God, help us, forgive us. He begs God. In another verse, he says, don't let us go into the desert if you're not going with us. And God actually says, just go, I'll take care of you, I'll keep you safe, and I'll give you a promised land, but I'm not going with you. You're too stubborn, you're too obnoxious, you don't listen, you guys are messed up. I'm not going with you. I'll take care of you, but I'm not going to go with you. And Moses goes, then we ain't going. Because I don't want to step a foot out if you're not with me. And Moses had the makeover long before his people had the makeover, because he's the kind of person, he demonstrates it right here in this passage. He gets down on his face and he says, God, help us, stay with us, claim us as yours. So if you really want to know the healthiest thing that you can do, you can allow God to give you this makeover, to change you, to transform you. In order to start that process, it's going to require you to humbly look and recognize that you need God more than you need what you think the world has to offer you. So here's the rest of the story. Let's look at it and break it down. Exodus chapter 34, it goes on to say a few verses later in verse 28, Moses remained on the mountain with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights. And all that time he ate no bread and drank no water, and the Lord wrote the terms of the covenant, the 10 commandments, on the stone tablets. I told you this is the second round of the 10 commandments. But notice a little detail there. Moses spent an hour and 12 minutes in church with God and then went back and everything was perfect. Do you notice that? Moses took 32 seconds to say a quick prayer for his food and then he was all set with God, and that's all he talked to God that day. Wait a second. Oh, but God said a prayer at bedtime for about a minute and a half, or Moses said a prayer, and then he was good. The thing says he spent 40 days and 40 nights and didn't even focus on his flesh at all. He fasted. He fasted from everything. There's no TV up on Mount Sinai, so Netflix, goodbye. Sports Center, goodbye. He didn't bring any other books with him. Home Slice went up there and sat down and just hung out with God for 40 days. You and I are not giving the time, the focus, the real energy that we need, and we wonder why we can't ever have the makeover, why we can't ever get past some of the issues we have. And if you want to begin to understand how Moses did it and how you can do it, you need to understand a few things. And first off, it's the fact that quick fixes will end in quick failures. And what you and I try to do is we try to fix our problems in like a little one-off. Like, I'll go to church this month. I'll go. We go to church once, maybe twice a month, maybe 3 or 4 times. And it's a total of 4 or 5 hours that we spend being close to God out of hundreds and hundreds of hours that we spend focusing on us, ourselves, and what we want or what we like or what we just need to do. And what we need to understand is that we need God more than we need work, more than we need food, more than we need family, more than we need sleep. And I'm not saying that other stuff isn't good. But we put God all the way down on this list, and then we wonder why all the things that we've stacked above him begin to crumble and don't leave us fulfilled. We are not emphasizing God to the level that he needs to be emphasized at, and so a quick fix doesn't actually work. A little like, let me throw a prayer at it one time and just see if I can get that done. Moses gets on his face and spends 40 days. And this isn't the last time. This is just the beginning of him spending every day with God. Every day, Moses got up and goes to a tent and talks with God. He's always seeking God's face. But every once in a while, he did nothing but seek God's face. How we live our lives is we do nothing but pursue what makes us happy or keeps us sustained. And then on occasion, we pursue God for a little bit of time in one day a week or something like that. It is so reverse of what we're called to do, of what God's designed you for. You're not glowing, you're not radiating, you're actually starving spiritually. You're getting just enough spiritual water to keep you from withering away completely, but you're barely hanging on. Your walk with God is going to be what sustains it. Matthew 6:6 says this, when you pray, go away by yourself. Shut the door behind you and pray to your Father in private. Then your Father who sees everything will reward you. It's talking about you need to have what's been described in times past as a prayer closet. I don't care if it's actually a closet, but you need to have some alone time. If the only time you pray is at the end of a service when we all close our eyes and pray together, that's not an intimate conversation for you and God. You need to have a conversation with God like you would if he was your best friend. You need to talk to him regularly, just the two of you. I like to go out and just walk through the woods or walk down the beach. I'm a nature person. If you don't like that, that's fine. Do it by your bedside. Spend some time sitting at the table, sipping a cup of coffee, sit on your porch. I don't care. But you need to find some alone time. If you remember when Jesus was living out his earthly life, he demonstrated this time and time again. In Mark, like all the other books, it says many times, Jesus gets up early while it's still dark, and he goes and spends alone time in prayer with God. That's Jesus. I'm going to say that again because the crap that I hear from him, well, I don't think I need it. I'm pretty good. Jesus did it. You can do it. He's the Son of God, and he's spending time. He goes out of his way to get up while it's dark. We get mad if the alarm clock goes off and interrupts a little bit of sleep because we have to go to church. And Jesus is like, I guess I'll get up while it's still dark, while everybody's sleeping, just to recharge my spiritual battery, my time with my Father before I go and minister to everybody else. It's humbling. It's one of the reasons, guys, we give you options. We want to try to help you. And church is not enough. I'm just saying that, not that I don't love our church, but coming to church, coming to a service once a week or every once in a while, that's not enough for you. You need to spend daily time with God. Spend time in devotion with him. Open up your Bible and just read. Even if you could only manage a few verses a day, get something in your system. We offer a daily directional. It's like a daily devotional. You can sign up for those. Those are free. They take 2 minutes to read. You can just not play a phone game for like one round and get that directional in, that devotional in. There's a Psalms for every day of the month. There's 31, or Proverbs, I'm sorry. There's 31 Proverbs. You could read one Proverbs a day and just get wisdom for the day. Do something. Do something and then spend some time in prayer. You just need to work on that. That's how you're going to grow deeper. Let's see what happens with Moses, though, because this is where the story gets fun. When Moses comes down from Mount Sinai in verse number 29, he's carrying the 2 stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant. And check this out. He wasn't aware that his face had become radiant because he had spoken to the Lord. The Hebrew here says that it pushed out of his face. It's the same terms they would use for when an animal grows horns. It's the same term, it's the same words they use when Jesus' face on the Mount of Olives, when he's transfigured, it shines. It's not a reflection of light. It's literally illuminating. It is like a spotlight, like he's got a spotlight under his skin. The light is shooting off of him, like it's emanating from him. This is the face of Moses because he was exposed to God. And it's one of only 2 times we ever see this in Scripture. But Moses gets close to God. He gets a makeover. He gets the healthy facial that he needed. He got close to the creator of all things. And when he comes down, he doesn't even realize it, but his face is shining so bright everywhere he looks. It's just making a giant spotlight. And people are going like this. It says in the next verse, so when Aaron and the people of Israel saw the radiance of Moses' face, they were afraid to come near him. This is not like a light glow, like he was pregnant. And they're like, oh, you're glowing. Home slice is blinding them. Everywhere he's looking, they're like, oh, gosh. They're like, Moses! And they're freaking out. You got to understand, they are at the bottom of the mountain, and it's just clouds and fire and like lava and like boom, boom, and then like he walks down and his face is like, and they're like, you tell him. No, you tell him. They're afraid to go near him. And he's like, guys, what's the problem? What's the problem? There's a couple things that I think those verses teach us, and I think it's good for us to remember. You get closer, you're going to shine brighter. This is talking about your proximity to God. We just talked about his time, the willingness he had to spend time with God, to spend that much time absorbing the radiance of God allowed him to then come back and just emanate it out himself. But some of you do not understand that your walk with God is so shallow compared to where it could be if you would just, 1, spend more time, and 2, get closer. Go deeper. A shallow surface level walk with God where all you do is just kind of maybe a little bit, open up just a little bit and let him deal with little things, and you don't ever expose who you are, the real parts of your life that need change, the real parts of your life that hurt, the areas where you're truly ashamed, the things that have broken you, the things that have hurt you, the things that you're the most mad about. When you don't let God work on those deeper crevices, when you don't take out the shame mask and let the scars be exposed, when you keep pretending that you don't have it, when you defend him and keep him away, what you're doing is you're not giving God the access to go to the depth that you need, and so you're never going to shine bright because you haven't gotten in proximity to him. I spent time with my daughter at the bus stop waiting for her to get on the bus, and it was so freezing cold that we sat in my truck. And she goes, Dad, I don't understand. The sun is out and it's bright. And I go, yeah. And she goes, so why is it so cold? And I go, well, just because the sun's out doesn't mean it's going to be warm. And she goes, but in the summer, a sunny day always meant it was warm. And she understood the cold days when it's gray and it's raining, and you're like, it makes sense. There's no sun. But it was this weird thing. She's like, the sun's out, but it's still not warm. And I was like, babe, like as the planet tilts, the rays aren't direct anymore. And then a shallow ray doesn't warm up the planet enough. We don't have long enough days with direct enough contact from the sun, so our days are shorter and the amount of time we're getting warmed up is shorter, and so it just gets colder. And then I started thinking, that's a lot like my walk with God. When I begin to shorten the time I'm with him, and then the access, whether it's direct or it's just kind of a glancing like, hey, God, good day, I'm out. And then I wonder why, man, I'm not really the light I'm supposed to be. James 4, verse number 8 says, come close to God, and he will come close to you. Talks about washing your hands and being purified. But it's that first part that I think we misunderstand. We're wondering, like, what's going on? You haven't been close to God. You've been so distant from him in proximity, it's no wonder that you're not glowing. You're not radiating. I can look at this mask from a distance and be like, yeah, that could probably help. I don't know if it actually does, by the way. I'm not selling these things. This is just a dumb illustration. But if you love them, great. I'm sure they work. But I have to probably actually let it get close to my skin. Oh, well, I looked at it. I glanced at it. I thought about it for a little while. Does that not count? No. The longer I have it in contact with me, the longer I'm closer to it, the more work it can do. If I really want the glow booster and the radiant, smooth, visibly more beautiful skin that I know I do, I have to spend more time. He is not radiant, he is not glowing because he went up there and then he focused on himself. He's not radiant and glowing because he got time with God and then he said, God, I hate this person and this person's mean to me and why do they have more money than I have and why aren't I tall like them and can't you make my Instagram pictures look like theirs and wow, God. Wait a second, isn't that what we do? Dear God, if you would just give me some more money, a better car, maybe 3 more inches of height, and then, I don't know, a raise at work or what. Like we just come up with all these things, these weird wish lists for God, and we act like that's closeness with God. We've never surrendered. We've never laid down. We've never asked for the makeover. We've just been selfish. That's not what I'm talking about. But you notice something else? He comes down from the mountain, and it says he didn't realize that his face was glowing. He didn't realize the impact that it was having on him to be so close to God. And this is what I love about this story. If you get close to God, the impact will change you. And it'll change you so much that other people will notice something is different about you. Parents, listen, your kids will notice something is different about you when you begin to put God first in your life. Mom's different. Dad's different. My grandpa's got a better attitude. My grandma seems a little bit more patient. My uncle, my aunt, my brother, my sister, my teacher, my boss, my friend, my neighbor, you fill in the blank. That person will notice that there is a change in you when you begin to get close to God and radiate that out. You might not even notice it. You're just like, man, I'm just spending time with God. I didn't even realize that things were changing. I didn't realize how it was happening. I didn't realize that I was glowing and emanating. I didn't realize what was happening because I was so consumed with being more like Christ. I didn't even know that it was making a difference, but it is, and it's impacting. And it changes people. Moses didn't come down going, look at me. I'm close to God. Glowing skinned. Praise me. He's just so humble, just putting his face before God to say, God, just help me. He wasn't looking to be this awesome thing that everybody looked up to. He just wanted God's blessing. And in that, God used him to show everybody else. And by the way, him coming down like that made everybody go, we're going to listen to Moses. Like whatever Moses said, only dude in camp with a glowing face. You just made sure your tent wasn't near his at night because then it was like a nightlight that you couldn't put out. And you're like, Moses, go to sleep. It says this, though, in Matthew chapter 5, You're the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that can't be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a blanket. No. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand. You take a light and you shine it as bright as you can. It gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine. You're a light. You're supposed to shine. Here's what I need you to understand. You will shine brighter when you have been around God more. When you take off your masks. When you put on what it is that God has for you. You'll shine brighter, and the value of shining brighter is that your good deeds will shine out for all to see, so everyone will praise your heavenly Father. You will have more of an impact for God in your home, in your marriage, with your family, with your classmates, with your coworkers, or your employees, or your boss, or your teammates, when you're walking with God. This is what he's called us to do. This is why this mask is so important, because it impacts everybody else. It says in the following verse, though, Moses called out to him, and he asked Aaron and all the leaders of the community to come over, and he talked with them, and all the people of Israel approached him. So Moses gave them the instructions that God had given him, and when Moses finished speaking, he had to cover his face with a veil. It was just too much. It scared him too much. So we see Moses cover up his face because it's almost overpowering for them. They're so afraid of what is happening in Moses' life. Some of them just can't handle it. So he has to veil up so he doesn't keep scaring everybody as he walks through camp. And what I learned about this, and this is true for some of you, I know some of you are on your baby steps, you're beginning to follow after God, you've just recently started taking some major, making some major progress in your walk for God. And what's happening is some of your friends, maybe even a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, a wife, maybe a family member, maybe it's a coworker, but there's people that you've been close to in your old life. As you strip off the old sin nature and put on the new nature that God has for you, you begin to glow, you begin to radiate, you begin to look more like Jesus, and it freaks them out. And there's going to be people in your life that you love that won't know how to handle your new faith or your growth. There's going to be buddies that you have, friends that you have, romantic connections that you have, and they're going to go, whoa, what's up with you? Why aren't you doing what you used to do? You're not partying like you used to. You're not as much fun as you used to be. You're not doing the things that made me feel comfortable around you. And now they begin to be put back, to get scared. You got to remember, if you're not up there experiencing God, you don't know what's happening. So there's a lot of people in our life that don't have any connection with God at all. And for you to begin to act like Jesus just scares them, just confuses them. Don't let that diminish what it is that God's called you to do. I made a note for myself that says it this way: people's approval can't fuel your spiritual journey. I cannot base my progress on everybody else being comfortable with what it is that God's called me to do. Nobody that I knew early on told me that starting Harbor.Church was a good idea. Because from a financial standpoint and a logical standpoint, starting a church, especially in Hyannis, is a dumb thing to do. But God called me to do it. And then the more I try to tell them, the more they're like, what are you talking about? Nobody does that. And I was like, I can't make you see what it is that God's showing me, but I can't let your disapproval keep me from doing what it is that God's put on my heart to do. And sometimes people just need to see you step out in faith, and then they'll get behind you. And sometimes they just scratch their head and they never do. And you just have to walk by faith, even if they never tell you that you're doing the right thing. But when God begins to speak to you, he might tell you to lay down an addiction. He might tell you to step away from a habit. He might tell you to stop talking a certain way, or to start doing something, to start giving in an area, to start trusting him more. And people who haven't experienced what you've experienced are going to go, why would you do that? And their curiosity feels like a put down, but if you're not basing your progress on their approval, then you can just boldly go, hey, I've experienced something. I hope you get to experience it. I'll talk to you anytime you want. But you don't sit there and go, oh, they're scared by my face. I guess I shouldn't hang out with God anymore. No, just let them be weaker. You keep doing the right thing, and hopefully they'll catch up. It says in John 15, the world hates me. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world would love you if you were one of its own, but you're no longer part of the world. And I chose you to come out of the world, so that's why it hates you. You're going to have people that dislike you and dislike you at work because you're a Christ follower. There's going to be people that tease you in your own family or in your circle of friends because you have morals that they don't have, standards that you don't apply to. Don't get mad. Don't give them more fuel. Don't be a jerk. Now they're right. You do suck because you just be mean. Don't do that. Still be nice. You can be weird and be nice. Some of you are like, no, I can't. You can. He goes on to say this. Here's the end. Whenever he went to the tent of the meeting, that's a place that he would go daily with God. This is Moses. To speak with the Lord, he would remove the veil until he came out again. And then he would give the people whatever instructions the Lord had given him. And the people of Israel would see the radiant glow of his face. So he put the veil over his face until he returned to speak to the Lord again. This is what he did day after day, day after day, day after day. He consistently walked with God. Moses goes down as one of the greatest men or person of faith in the entire Bible. And the one thing you find about Moses is that although he has some shortcomings, although he screws up, he's consistent. And I think sometimes we're looking for the quick makeover. We want the one shop and done thing, you know like the TV shows, they come in, they give them a new hairstyle, new clothes, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I didn't do anything, I just got it, oh my gosh. And then you're sitting there going, you know what, that is an improvement, but they have to keep working on it because that's not going to last forever. Now, if a step up, some help, that's nice. A new hairdo, a new clothes, that's cool. But keep working on it. Keep going back. It's the idea here that maintenance leads to mileage. Any of you in here that are mechanics or work on cars, you might be able to appreciate this. You don't just buy something and go, I'll just drive it till it falls apart and hope I don't have to do anything. I put gas in every once in a while. That's enough, right? No. Don't just take it in when there's a problem. Keep the oil changed. Every once in a while, top off the fluids. Check the air in the tires. Make sure there's a new belt on or a new hose. Don't just wear it down and then only take it in when there's a problem. Stay on top of things, and you'll get more mileage out of it. Your walk with God your spiritual walk will be healthier if you do it a lot. Some of the people with the best healthcare routines are the ones that are the healthiest, because it's not like they wait till they gain 500 pounds to go on a diet. They just eat healthy all the time. Or the people whose skin looks nice, they don't just put cream on once and then go back to beating up their skin the rest of the time. They try to maintain something healthy. It works so much more in your spiritual life than that, this idea that to continue to do it. In Luke 9, he says, if any of you wants to be my followers, this is Jesus talking to us. If you want to be my follower, you must give up your own life, take up your cross. What's the next word? Take up your cross. You guys sure it doesn't say once or twice a year? Okay. Daily sacrifice. Daily follow after me. When you get to this part where you understand, and this is it, I'm closing. You put on the makeover mask. It's going to require you to have that daily interaction where you're going to God. And it's not just daily going, God, make me better. It's daily going, I got to take this mask off. I got to take this mask off. God, I want to come and I want to make an excuse. I want to come and I want to complain. I want to come and I want to lie. But what I got to do is I got to take those off, and I've got to put this one on. I've got to allow you to transform me. God, I've got to allow you to be the one that changes me. Romans 12, verses 1 and 2 say that we have a job if we want a real transformation. If we really want God to change us, to make us over. It says, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all that he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice. Sacrifice means it's not about what I want, it's about what you want, God. It says when you do that, the kind of sacrifice he'll find acceptable, that's the way that you truly worship him. And you don't do it, it goes on in the next verse, it says you don't do it by copying the customs and behaviors of the world. It says don't be conformed to the world in other versions. How do I go forward then if I'm not like the world? It says let God transform you by changing the way you think. He transforms you into a new person, changing the way you think. That's how you're going to know God's will. The transformation requires you to sacrifice. Some of you haven't let go of your excuses yet. You've got a reason right now in your head for why you can't get a makeover. You've got a reason in your head right now why you're not going to let God do some surgery on your heart. Take the brokenness and turn it into something better. You need to understand this. Your surrender, your sacrifice, it's what's going to trigger your transformation. It happens because you lay down your masks and pick up what he has for you. Moses' transformation, the children of Israel's transformation, would never have happened if he hadn't gone up there and gotten on his face and said, God, forgive me. We surrender to you. If you're not willing to do that, if you haven't done that in your life, you're only going to keep putting on the wrong masks. Hear me out. You might have a breakthrough and take one of these masks off for a day or two, but if you don't learn to put the right mask on, remember Colossians 3, take off the old sin nature, put on the new, put on the Creator. Every time you take something off, there's a void. God says, I've got something good for you to put on, but if you won't surrender to let God tell you who you should be, then you're going to go back to picking something that you want for yourself. That's the cycle we get in. We hear a message, we read a verse, something tragic happens in our life, and we get broken enough that we take something off, that we say, God, I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry I act like that. Forgive me. And God cleanses us because he's merciful and he's just and he's loving. And he cleanses us. But then we sit there going, well, I'm clean, now what do I do? He goes, hey, would you draw close to me and I'll draw close to you and I'll show you what to do? And we go, I kind of like pursuing this. I kind of like getting high. I kind of like being greedy. I kind of like sleeping around. I kind of like making money more than anything else. I kind of like people liking me more than I care about having standards. And we begin to pursue things that have nothing to do with us putting on the new nature of Christ. It's just about finding a different mask. This is a successful series. Sure, if you found a mask that you were able to take off, I hope that's the case, but it doesn't have the value that it should if you don't learn to put on what you're supposed to put on. I'm talking about the transforming power of God. Hebrews 12 recounts the whole thing of Moses. You got to go read Hebrews 12. It's wicked cool, but for time's sake, I'll just read this part. It says, when God spoke from Mount Sinai, and saying, it's talking about that story, thousands of years later. It says, hey, when God spoke from Mount Sinai, his voice shook the earth. But now he makes another message, another promise. Once again, I'm going to shake not only the earth, but I'm going to shake the heavens also. This means that all the creation will be shaken and removed, so that only the unshakable things remain. And since we're receiving a kingdom that's unshakable, let's be thankful and please God by worshiping him with holy fear and awe. The same way that the Israelites are supposed to look up at God on that mountain and go, wow. Why? The last verse says it all. For he is a devouring, some versions say consuming fire. Do I want a God that's a consuming fire? I don't know. Yeah, you do. Because what the fire does is it takes and it burns away the impurities. Sure, it melts stuff down, but when you melt down the valuable stuff, it just becomes malleable. It's moldable. It's something you can work with. The fire seems like something we don't want. We don't want to get near the fire because it's going to burn off my masks. You're dang right it is. You get close to God, he's going to burn up your excuses. He's going to burn up your pain. He's going to expose all the stuff that you're trusting that you shouldn't. And he's going to melt you down and make you malleable. He's going to get you to be the kind of person that he can use. And as scary as that is, it's actually something beautiful. It's the only way you're going to find real purpose. It's the only way you're going to find real freedom. It's the only way you're going to find true contentment this side of eternity, is letting him do that. When Jesus came, he told the people, he says, I've come to set the world on fire. That must have been kind of hard to hear when you're one of his disciples. He goes, I came to set this place on fire. I wish it was already burning. Jesus goes, I'm here to change some things. I'm here to do a work. This is Jesus before he dies, before he leaves. He goes, I came to set the world on fire. I came to burn away these masks, to get rid of your excuses, to take away your pain, to make it so you don't have to hide your shame or protect yourself or try to get away with your own ideas. You don't have to pretend to be something you're not. I came to burn that down, and I got a new plan for you. I've got something better for you. Let me make you over. Let me transform you. That's what Jesus said. That's what he came to do. He summarized it another way in John 10:10. He said, I came to give life. Give it to the fullest. So why are we settling for something less? If you get anything out of these past few weeks, and maybe tonight this is the only message you've heard, maybe this one or one of the other ones, but if you get nothing out of the idea of masks, understand that God loves you even if you're wearing all of these and then some. He still loves you. But he wants to set you free. And he wants you to put something better on than what you have been wearing. The choice is yours, what you're going to do with it. I pray that you let him do a work in your heart. Will you bow your heads with me and pray as I pray? I'll pray out loud and you pray right where you're at. If you're watching at home, you can pray right there at your computer or your TV screen, whatever you got. Just spend a few moments in prayer right now, surrendered to the God who would give everything to set you free. In the same way that God rescued the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, that same God right now in this moment is offering you freedom from your sin. If you feel chained down by an addiction, if you feel burdened by a mistake from your past, if you feel like you've been enslaved to some issues that you have, if you feel like you can't let go of some sin, some choices that you've made, some things that have happened to you, if you feel like you can't get past that, he wants to set you free from that right now. Just like he set them free from literal bondage, he's here to set you free from your spiritual slavery right now. But you have to invite him in. I'm going to pray out loud, but you have to pray quietly right where you're at. God knows your every thought. And what he's asking you to do in this moment is to be like Moses and take off your fake masks. Take off all the things that you have put on. In this moment, with nobody looking around and every head bowed and every eye closed, would you say to God, I need to take this off. God, I need to stop pretending. I need to stop hiding. I need to stop trying to protect myself. I need to stop trying to find my identity in anything besides you. If you want, I'll pray for you. But you have to mean it. Nobody's looking around, but I'm going to invite you to raise your hand. If you're watching online, you can put up a hand emoji or something, and we'll pray for you. But those of you here in the room with me, if you know in this moment that you need to take off a mask, would you just simply raise your hand and say, that's me, Pastor. Pray for me. I need to take something off. I need to take this off. I need to get rid of this. Hands all over the room. Thank you. You can slip it up and slip it right back down. Pray for me, Pastor Josh. I've got a mask I got to take off. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for having the courage to admit that. I want to ask you another question. How many of you right now in this moment know that you need something better? Not just to take off something, but you know that you need to have something more from God, a deeper walk with him, a relationship with him, maybe an encounter with him for the very first time, but you need a makeover. You need closeness with God. How many of you would say, that's me? Pray for me. Once again, hands everywhere. I see them. Thank you. Thank you. Online, you can slip it up and just put a hand up and say, that's me. Somebody pray for me. We will. As I pray out loud, will you pray right now, right where you're at, and invite God into your life? Invite him into your heart. And if it's for the very first time, that's called salvation. Invite God in and not only get rid of your sin and your past and your mistakes, but surrender to him to let him give you a new path. I'll pray for you, but it still has to be a decision that you make. Will you pray right where you are, right where you're at, and say, God, save me. God, forgive me. God, help me. Let me know what it is you have for me. I surrender to you. Give me that makeover. It doesn't have to be those exact words, but it needs to be something like it. As we pray, dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, thank you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for being the kind of God who takes us through the valleys and brings us to the mountaintops. God, thank you for being the kind of God who turns graves into gardens, who does something miraculous with the broken, and you transform ashes, God, into beauty. You pull victory from defeat. You take bones and you turn them into armies. God, you do so many amazing things in our lives when we surrender, when we take our masks off, when we allow you to do work in our hearts. So in this moment, God, for myself and for every person that raised their hand, I pray, Lord God, that you would help us. Help us take off the lies, the excuses, the pain, the past, the sorrows, the pretending, whatever it is, the fake masks that we're wearing. God, help us to not only lay those at your feet and surrender those and repent from those, but God, also to find something good to put on. God, help us find the makeover, the changes, the beauty, the light that you have for us. God, so many of us have family members and friends and acquaintances that need a light. God, would you use us to be that light? To inspire our parents, to help our kids, to encourage our brother, our sister, to be a light in our school and our workplace. God, use us individually and as a church to make an impact. As we give to you, God, we trust that you can do so much more with it than what we can do. So we give you our life. We give you our time and our talents. We give you our treasure and we give you our testimony. And we know that you've got something better for us. So God, we lay this at your feet and we claim this right now in the name of Jesus, and we thank you for it. Amen.